What's good everyone, Smudger here. Let's talk Platinum SMGs. Infinitely easier to do now that Tier 1 is here. The only one I had a real issue with, even in Tier 1, was the Vector or the Fennec, however you want to call it. But we'll get to that at the end. We'll rapid fire through the classes that I used, what I think is important to prioritise, and unsurprisingly, almost all of that comes down to damage range and bullet velocity. You kind of give up all movability. That is not a word. Mobility is the word I was looking for. When you do this, any optic you want, I think I used the 4 times because my vision is awful. You have to be 30 meters away in order for it to count with an SMG. And then you can pretty much add on a slightly larger magazine in order to make some of the shots a bit easier, and pretty much any recoil stabilization attachment that you're interested in. It doesn't matter too much on that front. The main thing is the muzzle and the barrel in order to increase the damage range. Even in Tier 1, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of extra help. Personally, I took a deployable cover with me everywhere I went and just mounted the weapon on that and waited. There's a ton of line of sights for 30 meters. Makes it a bit easier than the ARs, which some of the maps can feel like a real struggle, but we'll get onto maps a little bit later. Let's just keep it rolling. The MX9 is up next. Definitely a weaker gun. I don't think people need telling that. If you've already got it gold, you know that. Definitely a little bit more of a pain to use. Completely doable though. The biggest thing is to add on the 32 round mag, because this holds like, I think it's like 24 bullets, something like that, and it's normal mag, and that's just simply not enough. Any recoil stabilization you want. If you're really struggling, you can tune it to increase the damage range, maybe the recoil steadiness, and similarly with the muzzle, do something similar. Mounting up the weapon and just holding down a line of sight is just the best way to do almost all of these SMGs if you're going to do them in Tier 1. You could do them in normal core. I think I might have done the Lachman sub in core and then everything else in Tier 1. It's just easier in my opinion, it's faster. Next up is the Lachman sub. Exactly the same sort of process, whatever is going to increase your bullet velocity, your damage range as much as possible. I think I used the 40 round mag rather than the 50 round drum. It wouldn't make much difference. You're not exactly going to be running and gunning with this because you're setting it up to hit your long shots. Something along the lines of that with any sight you chose. Some people don't even use a sight for 30 meters, but my eyes are horrific and I need one. Pretty simple, pretty standard stuff. The Vaznev is up next, a very, very good all-round SMG. But as always, we're going to increase the damage range as much as possible. Pretty in line with everything else. It doesn't really matter what you put in terms of recoil control. It still doesn't really move, especially if you're going to mount up on something. I know I keep saying it, but I think it's the best way to go about it is bring a deployable cover. Next up, we have the Hurricane. Again, on the weaker side in terms of range, but definitely doable. The good news is it does not move, which makes life so much easier. There is, however, no mag extension, because I think it's 50 rounds it comes with, like normally, which kind of takes away part of the decision. You can put on another attachment. I tuned this all to the max as far as like bullet velocity and damage went, just because it felt like it wasn't really hitting as hard as it could. And after that, it is a case of just lobby surfing, waiting for the right maps to pop up in Tier 1. Then we have the Mini Back, which was my favourite gun to get Platinum in the SMG category. This thing just seems to hit. I don't know if I was getting some exceptionally easy lobbies, but this thing just shredded at range. I don't know what was going on. I don't know if I was getting a particularly good map choice and that's why it felt so much different, but this thing was just insane. I mounted up for most of these kills. Next up we have the PDSW, or the P90 as I tend to call it. Pretty standard stuff once again. Anything that increases your damage range is what you want to use. Obviously you don't need to worry about mobility because you're going to be at 30 meters or more. There's not much you can do in terms of mobility if you're going to be at that distance, especially against the ARs. It just means that all your choices are made a bit easier because you don't have to try and balance out that bullet velocity to mobility ratio, and you can go purely for range. This is what I used, these two definitely. I might have switched the stock round for an underbarrel, but it didn't make too much difference. It's a decent enough gun, especially in Tier 1 there were no issues. Now the Fennec is the only gun where I think I had significant, or not even significant, but some issues with it even in tier 1. It is just such a weak gun that it's just a pain. That's the only way to say it. It's just a pain. Map choice is super important. Prioritise the smaller maps like Embassy. Farm 18 is another good one. But also it's just lobby dependent. You do need to mount up on something to consistently hit those shots. And so much of it is not luck based, but kind of playing the lobbies, surfing the lobbies a little bit. Have a couple of different SMGs on the go when you do this one, so you can come to this one when it's a good lobby and you have something else to do. If it's a bad lobby, a bit of a stronger SMG where it holds itself at range a little bit better. Now talking maps, Fortress is a great one. There's a couple of different lines of sight. The kind of like stables, the barn cutouts in the map that you can go in. You can go into them and look across the map, and that's almost always a guaranteed 30-meter kill as far as SMGs go. Hotel's another great one. I think most people are becoming aware of the mountable surface up by the A flag and domination, looking out into the main central hall where the archers are. Another great spot. Crown Raceway has a lot of good lines of sight, more suited to ARs and LMGs in my opinion. You're going to struggle a little bit more with SMGs, from my experience at least. LSCLO, pretty decent as well. There's some nice lines of sight. Again, favours ARs, especially on the outside, on the outskirts. Definitely a bit trickier. Embassy, can't have too many complaints. Pretty standard. Wouldn't be my top 3 choice, but there's nothing wrong with it per se. Farm 18 is deceptively good. It's a small enough map that most lines of sight are 30 meters or thereabouts without being kind of stretched at 37 meters that you need for ARs, and it just makes things a little bit easier. Same with Mercado Las Almas. I think most people know where to find their long shots for this. It is very much it was very much the shoot house before shoot house arrived. We don't talk about this map. Shoot house, not many people going for camo challenges in my experience. If you're going to play the dedicated playlist, people definitely running a gun in, which is fine. But if you get it in tier 1, there might be a few more people going for long shots. It's kind of hit and miss in my opinion. Tarak is a huge open map. By all means, if you get an enemy team that loves to frequent the middle section, so like these set of buildings here, you can post up kind of off to the blue building that's off to the right here. You can probably pick up a few, but it is a pretty big map suited to sniper rifles, LMGs, ARs, you know, anything that's not an SMG. Hydroelectric, pretty good. You can sit up here, look across, I think most people know that, and vice versa from the window over to the right. Shoot people, that will be a long shot. Similarly, the little like ruins, the little ruins back up here where you can hop up and look out towards kind of where B flag is and past it into that building will also count. It's perfectly viable. My top choices when I'm lobby surfing do tend to be Fortress, Hotel and Farm 18. That's just personal preference. In tier 1 I mostly just take what I can get. I have a few different guns on the go at any one time and I'm focusing on different things dependent on map choice. But that is Platinum SMGs out of the way, done and dusted. As always, any questions, queries, drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you and hope you have a good day and I'll see you next time. Bye.